In this segment, we're going to be talking about an SAS unit reportedly killed Afghan detainees, BBC find. So this was an investigative piece by the BBC, which I don't think they do enough of, but when they do, boy, do they get find some interesting stuff. And this is, a really horrifying, really horrifying article. And the more you read it, the more the kind of SAS accounts don't make sense. So I can't wait to get whisked away into the night by some randos busting into my house. But boy, when you read this article, and it's just haunting, so haunting. SAS operatives in Afghanistan reportedly killed detainees and unarmed men in suspicious circumstances, according to a BBC investigation. Newly obtained military reports suggest that one unit may have unlawfully killed 54 people in one 6-month tour. So one unit, I don't know how many people in a unit, probably got 12, between say 6 and 20, killed 54 people in night raids. These are typically done in night raids. The BBC found evidence suggesting the former head of Special Forces failed to pass on evidence to a murder inquiry. So there was an inquiry going on, and the apparently former head of the Special Forces said, "Yeah, nothing to do with me, bro. I haven't heard anything going on around here." The Ministry of Defence said British troops served with courage and professionalism in Afghanistan, and I'm sure the vast majority of them did. I would hope the vast majority of them did, but there are always outliers in the military. You see that whichever one you look at, the American one, even the Australian one I mentioned in this, there are always outliers. General Sir Mark Carleton Smith, the former head of UK Special Forces, was briefed about the alleged unlawful killings, but did not pass on the evidence to the Royal Military Police, even after the Royal Military Police began a murder investigation into the SAS squadron. So it was clear there was going to be an investigation, and the person in charge of the SAS said, "Yeah, nothing, I haven't heard anything, bro, no, don't ask me." Panorama analysed hundreds of pages of SAS operational accounts, including reports covering more than a dozen kill or capture raids carried out by one SAS squadron in Helmand in 2010 to 2011. Individuals who served with the SAS squadron on that deployment told the BBC they witnessed the SAS operatives kill unarmed people during night raids. So there are witnesses that have said this has happened. Did the army interview any of these witnesses? Doesn't look like it. They also said they saw operatives using so-called drop weapons, AK-47s, planted at a scene to justify the killing of an unarmed person. So what they did, these are the kind of tactics you might see with police forces, especially some American ones. Well, what they'll do is they'll have I think it's called a sting weapon or something like that, where they'll plant a weapon after they've killed someone to make it look like that person was reaching for a gun. Several people who served with Special Forces said the SAS squadrons were competing with each other to get the most kills. I mean, no, that's not your job. That's not the job of Special Forces. That's not the job of anyone in the military to collect body counts, to kill as many people as possible. That's not your job. It's to protect and serve the people that you're meant to be helping abroad. That's your role. Not killing people indiscriminately because you want to get a higher kill count than someone else. Ridiculous. The squadron scrutinised by the BBC was trying to achieve a higher body count than the one it had replaced. And who's incentivising this? Who's telling them to do this? That's a person that should be looked at as well. Internal emails show that officers at the highest levels of Special Forces were aware there was concerns over possible unlawful killings, but failed to report these suspicions to military police despite a legal obligation to do so. So someone should be held accountable for this if that's the case. If they had a legal obligation to do so, someone should be punished. The Ministry of Defence said it could not comment on specific allegations because obviously it can't, but that declining to comment should not be taken as acceptance. So I want to see you guys do something then. I want to see the MOD do something about this. In 2019, the BBC and the Sunday Times investigated one SAS raid, which led to a UK court case and an order to the UK Defence Minister to disclose documents outlining the government's handling of the case. So evidently, judges are getting involved here and saying, look, you need to tell us exactly what you did here. The BBC said, we found a pattern of similarly striking reports of Afghan men being shot because they pulled AK-47 rifles or hand grenades from behind curtains or other furniture after being detained. So somehow after being detained, and you'd assume handcuffed, right, or at least zip tied or something, right, they've somehow managed to reach for a weapon or a grenade. That sounds like nonsense. Absolute nonsense. On the 29th of November 2010, the squadron killed a man who had been detained and taken back inside a building where he attempted to engage the forces with a grenade. And this is a running theme here. Someone reached behind a mattress, pulled out a grenade and attempted to throw it, yet no one was killed. The squadron pulled a detainee who they said had attempted to engage the patrol with a rifle. Another one, two detainees, after one pulled a grenade from behind the curtains and the other picked up an AK from behind a table. Another one tried to throw a grenade, and you can see the reports here. So you've got multiple reports of this happening, despite the fact that these people were meant to be detained. So either members of the SAS don't actually know how to tie someone up, or how to zip tie their hands together properly, or they're lying. Which one is it? Which one? Because you're either arguing incompetence, gross incompetence to the point where you could get fellow members of your unit killed very easily, or you're talking about lies, systemic lies. Which one is it? The total death toll during the squadron's 6-month tour was in the triple figures. No injuries to SAS operatives were reported across the raids scrutinised by the BBC. So somehow none of these grenades went off, or none of these people managed to fire their rifles despite reaching for them. You've got here, these are the sort of files the BBC are going through. So B is a military term for male, which is just weird, is escorted back to the house. He's instructed to pull down one of the curtains. Why a member of the SAS is not the one that pulled down one of the curtains doesn't make sense. You wouldn't ask someone who's being detained to do that because they're effectively a prisoner. It doesn't make any sense. Then this person pulled a grenade from behind the curtain and moves to throw it at the team. He poses an immediate threat to life and is engaged with aimed shot. The male is confirmed EKIA killed, enemy killed in action. So somehow, right, this person who's detained, they told him to close the curtain, then miraculously there's a hand grenade, because I'm sure Afghan people are known to keep hand grenades behind their curtains. Like, come on mate, let's be honest here. A senior officer who worked at UK Special Forces headquarters told the BBC there was a real concern over the squadron's report. So evidently people looked at this stuff and was like, something doesn't seem right here. Too many people were being killed on night raids and the explanations didn't make sense, he said. Once somebody's detained, they shouldn't end up dead, and for it to happen over and over again was causing alarm at HQ. So why there weren't proper investigations, I don't know. Why there weren't arrests, I don't know. The squadron had sent a detainee back into a building and he reappeared with an AK. Who's monitoring this person? You got internal email saying someone was sent back into a building and he reappeared with a weapon. How? Who's monitoring them? Are they not zip tied? What's going on here? Then when they walked back into a different building, a building with another male, to open the curtains, he grabbed a grenade from behind a curtain and threw it. Fortunately, it didn't go off. This is the 8th time this happened. You couldn't make it up. So the 8th time someone pulls out a grenade, apparently doesn't pull the pin or something, throws it at the team, throw it at the SAS team, right, and it didn't go off. What, like, who's believing this? Who's like, yeah, that checks out? And clearly the internal emails, whoever this has been sent to, does not believe this. Senior leadership became so concerned that a rare formal review was commissioned of the squadrons, was deployed to Afghanistan to interview personnel from the squadron. He appeared to take the SAS version of events at face value. So he spoke to them and said, did this person pull out a grenade? Yes. Okay, cool, you're done. The BBC understands that the officer did not visit any of the scenes of the raids or interview witnesses outside the military. Essentially, this is a whitewash. That's what this was, to say, oh, we've done a formal investigation, a formal review, and nothing, what they say checks out. Final report was signed off by the commanding officer of the SAS unit responsible for the suspicious killing. So, effectively, a whitewash report that was signed off. How very English. And you've got another report here, which I'm not going to go through. None of the evidence was passed on to the military police. So it was never meant to be investigated. Statements containing the concerns were instead put into a restricted access classified file for anecdotal information about extrajudicial killings, accessible only to a handful of senior special forces officers. So the review they did was essentially classified. It was put in a classified folder so no one could actually read it. In 2012, General Carleton Smith was appointed head of the UK Special Forces. The BBC understands he was briefed about the suspicious killings, but he allowed the squadron to return to Afghanistan. So essentially, he allegedly allowed more extrajudicial killings to happen. When the Royal Military Police launched a murder investigation in 2013, General Carleton Smith did not disclose to the RMP of the earlier concerns. We mentioned that before. Colonel Oliver Lee, who was commander of the Royal Marines in Afghanistan in 2011, told the BBC that the allegations of misconduct raised by our investigations were incredibly shocking and merited a public inquiry, which did not happen. The apparent failure by Special Forces leadership to disclose evidence was completely unacceptable. So what you have here is, for whatever reason, an SAS unit incentivized to kill people, right? Allegedly. Then you have the powers that be, the people who are meant to stop this sort of stuff, or at least investigate it, didn't pass it on to the relevant people. I think there's some more stuff on to cover. Here it is. During the raids, the SAS squadron used a recognised tactic in which they called everyone from inside a building out. So they called everyone outside the building, searched and restrained them with cable tie handcuffs. So there we go. And then took one male back inside to assist special forces with a search. Senior officers became concerned by the frequency with which the squadron's own accounts described the detainees as being taken back inside buildings and then grabbing for hidden weapons. So what you have is a person who should be zip-tied, right? So they can't actually move their hands, and then somehow reaching behind a curtain or inside a mattress to reach for weapons. Now, I'm no expert on handcuffs, but generally I'd assume when you handcuff someone, their hands are tied behind their back. So how do they reach for a grenade behind the curtain that always seems to be there? And how are you supposed to draw down curtains if you're zip-tied? Unless their hands are in front of them, but even then, trying to fight back whilst you're zip-tied is very difficult. And if these people aren't zip-tied and they're allowed to, kind of gallivant around buildings to go near curtains, that doesn't seem very right to me. It just seems bizarre. An enemy tactic not reported. So this tactic of reaching for enemy for weapons was not reported by any other British military forces operating in Afghanistan. So no other units came across this, and the SAS wouldn't have been the only ones doing night raids. This suggests the SAS were shooting unarmed people, and that SAS operatives might be falsifying evidence by dropping weapons at the scene after killing people. And the other question is, where are these people getting the AKs from? So they did an investigation at the BBC. Inside the guest house, what appeared to be bullet holes from the raids were clustered together on the walls, low to the ground. The BBC showed these photographs to two ballistics experts who said the cluster suggested multiple rounds had been fired downward from above and did not appear indicative of a firefight, because they wouldn't be really firing downward. I think the military are told to fire at centre mass, right, straight in the chest, rather than going for headshots or anything like that. So they actually had a look at the bullet holes, etc. The same pattern was visible at two other locations examined by the BBC. Now, I didn't go through the rest of the article because we've got a feel of it already, which is the SAS are accused of extrajudicial killings. The government are saying that any fresh SAS kill claims will be investigated, says Minister. Why do they have to be fresh ones? Surely you should go over the old ones, no? Surely, any evidence that the SAS have should be passed on to the Royal Military Police and for these things to be investigated. But what they're doing here is, especially with something like the Legacy Bill, it looks like they're trying to whitewash any kind of evidence that the British military were involved in extrajudicial killings, which effectively is a form of murder. They took people back into buildings that were detained or should have been detained, right, to help with further investigations, and then somehow they miraculously reached for weapons. Yeah, I don't know about that. And the scary thing is, if the British military is deployed elsewhere, right, they can use these same sort of tactics. We've seen these sorts of tactics before. Or at least, really, really brutal tactics used by the British military, which, should borderline really on the illegal side here. There's a reason why we have a code of conduct, a code of war, which is you don't want to see stuff like this, civilians being murdered. How are you supposed to foster goodwill amongst people when you do stuff like this? Do I have any faith the government will probably look into this? No, I really don't, but... what more can you say about this sort of stuff apart from the fact that the British military should not be doing this? And this is a reason why militaries around the world get hated. One of the reasons why. When you go into a foreign land where you're not wanted in the first place and you go around killing civilians. It's just madness. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you next time.